Hey folks, Jonathan here. Got a little issue with my top kick. This is the 4-door rollback that I put together, and this is a JerrDan bed, and I had a cylinder that has totally popped the seal out or blowed the seal out, and it's actually the seal on the gland. Okay, but this is a little different setup because this is a JerrDan, and now unless this one's different than every other one I've ever done, this is different from any other cylinder setup I've ever seen. Okay, of course you got a shaft in there with a piston, and the piston's pushed back and forth, and there's seals on it, on the piston, and that's what seals it from going from one side to the other side. That would be bypassing. Then you've got a gland down here. Now, unlike the old rollbacks, the cylinder actually mounts here, or the shaft mounts here, and the cylinder mounts at this end, and the tube. And the old ones was the other way. And a lot of dump trucks are the other way, but these ones sort of, they work backwards, but it keeps the dirt from laying inside of your holes here. But these, instead of having a single snap ring and then your gland pops out, there's actually a snap ring, then your gland, then there's another snap ring. And the other snap ring is where people have the problem, because unless you take this gland out first, you can't get that snap ring out. You can't slide everything out. Usually what you do is, basically take this one snap ring off and force this cylinder apart. Well, it's not going to work that way, because the piston comes up, hits this lower snap ring, and it will not come out. So there's, maybe other ways of doing this, but the way that I do it, instead of putting pressure on this end and trying to blow everything out, put pressure on this end, it pulls it in, and once it pulls it in, it starts pushing out on the gland. Now the only issue we're going to have with this is this packing is so bad that it's bypassing so much fluid, we may not be able to get enough fluid to do it. So if it don't do it, you can knock it back in some, clean around it really good, and sometimes you got to take a Dremel and go around it, make sure, because the grooves where the snap rings hit actually will swell out and keep your piston from coming out. And the pistons are usually aluminum in these. But what we're going to do is go ahead and get this bed back. I'm going to get it tilted, then we're going to get this unpinned, and then we'll try to swing it up and show you the gland and the snap ring and what I'm talking about, and how we're going to try to go about doing this. Now, for anybody that's got a JerrDan, just I've run into this. I've had other people call me, because a lot of people know that I work on rollbacks and wreckers for years and years, so I get a lot of calls about JerrDan cylinders. I can't get them apart, and and all that. And the first ones I done, which was many years ago, it was on a 1982 model JerrDan bed. I had the same issue. I had some issues getting it apart until I figured it out. Once I figured it out, it wasn't any problem. But anyway, we're going to show you what's going on here and how you got to tackle this problem. These pouring fluid. Looks like I can get this one apart. Okay, I've got this thing up and try to clean it out a little bit. There's a single snap ring inside of here. We're going to get it out first. Once we get it out, I'm probably going to try to drive this down just a little bit and clean it up. I can see that's an aluminum gland in there. Let me get a light so we can see in here. Okay. Maybe you can see in there, but snap ring clamps at the bottom there, but I got so much fluid leaking, it's hard to see. But we're going to go ahead and get that snap ring out of there. And then, like I said, there's another one below the gland, so we've got to actually bring this cylinder all the way down, and hopefully the pressure built up in here will pop it out far enough so we can get a hold of it and get it out of there. So we're going to try it. Okay, this one didn't have a regular snap ring, it had one of these on it. So we got that out. Feels good in there, so we're going to give it a try. We'll let the cylinder back down. We'll draw it all the way in, and hopefully it'll push this gland out. So I'll get the camera set up so you can watch. Now it's going to be leaking a lot of fluid out, but hopefully it'll still push it out. See, that did it. Popped it out. Now we'll get it back up and I'll show you where that other or snap ring is. Alright, hopefully if I had any oil on the lens I got it off. Okay. Now maybe you can see the other snap ring. It's up in there farther than I remember, but there it is. So what it comes down to is you cannot put pressure on this end and blow this cylinder out. You have to put it on this end, let it collapse all the way in, and then pop the cylinder. So we've got that. Now we're going to pull this out. I'll probably just run this whole thing up there to Bill, buddy of mine, and we'll repack it, and then I'll put it back together. So that's how you do one. I'm going to have to get up in there with something to get that other O-ring out, or snap ring out, but it's not an issue. But I'm sure there's going to be people that post trying to figure out how to get JerrDan cylinders apart, because like I said, they're different than any other cylinder. So alright, let me get at it and I'll show you more. Okay, if I can do this before the camera dies, here's our gland, there's our inner snap ring, our outer snap ring. Now we can pull this apart. I'm going to do that. I'll move my pan up this way. Just remember, you need something big because you're going to make a heck of a mess. Alright, because it's going to have fluid coming out real bad when I pull it out from the top side. There we go. So now if I was going to do this myself, what I do is repin this back, and that way I can take a breaker bar and get on here and get this loose. And I'm probably not going to do it because he's got a table. We can just throw it up on the table real quick and get it. But anyway, let me get this part done, and we'll start putting this thing back together in the morning when I get it repacked. Okay, we're back. Ready to go in. Here's the old packing. As you can see, the harder part was just shot, so come out in pieces. Now these are just wears. These ain't part of the packing. The packing's in the center for this, and then of course the packing inside, and we put a new wiper seal in. So that's just to keep it clean, keep stuff from cutting down inside of it. And let me see, it's all back together. Now we're going to grease it up good. I'm going to clean up inside of here and make sure there's no rib or anything to catch. And we'll grease it up, knock her in there, get her back together. We'll see how she works. Alright. Okay, we got the piston in. Now we got to get the snap ring back down in there and on, and then we'll slide the gland in and get the top snap ring on. And for anybody's wondering, the reason that I don't pack this myself, and the reason I took it to the hydraulic shop, is I didn't order a kit. When I order a kit, you know, I always pack my own stuff, but when I'm trying to match stuff up when I'm in a hurry, if I was to take these parts or take the seals out and run up there, chances of getting the right ones is slim to none. So that's why we do it like this. And I want to tell you another thing too. I'd actually seen somebody try to pull one of these apart and didn't realize there was a snap ring in it, and actually broke the end, snapped it here and here, and broke the end completely off, and trying to winch it apart. So like I said, about the only way to get these JerrDan cylinders apart was the way I showed you. Now if for some reason there's too much leakage to get enough pressure to pull it apart. The only other trick that I know is to take this fitting out, run this piston down, and fill this thing full of rope, and then put pressure on this end, and hoping that you've got enough packing of rope in there to actually push the piston this way, and with the leaving the snap ring in. And luckily we didn't have to do that on this one. So, all right, let me get it back together. All right, just in time. Okay folks, I'm back from my third tow and no leak, so we got her fixed. Alright, appreciate everybody watching. Till next time, bye. Okay folks, I don't know what kind of voodoo this is, but this is the lower radiator hose for a C4500 Duramax, and as you can see it's got some T-unions in it, and me, being the dummy that I am, was doing a little preventive maintenance on this thing. And I reached in there and was trying to pull on something, and my arm hit this hose and broke it off, and lost all my antifreeze and my water and messed my hose up, lost my pride, all that good happy stuff. But anyway, this is terrible the way they made this. But so now I've got to snake this thing back up in there and get it hooked back up. Now I didn't price a new one. You know, I had to, this one actually come off the one that we pulled the cab off of for Bobby's truck. So I was scared to price a new one. I could imagine what the price would be on this thing, because it ain't made to take apart. So I mean, it's permanent there and there. So not a very smart idea, but you know, it is what it is. So we're going to try to get it back on there. All right, and I know everybody's always wondering where the videos are for the drag car and all that stuff, but you know, I do have a lot to do, I promise. I've besides the towing, I'm trying to keep these trucks up and rolling all the time. I'm getting ready to do the U-joints on this one. They're getting a little loose, but I've been running this truck for 7 years maybe with the same joints, and they've been greased, but I mean, over time there's not much joint there. They're little tiny joints, so get them changed and back in here. I've got Highway Patrol inspection coming up sometime this year. I don't have any idea when, but I've got to have, you know, make sure I have all the trucks up to par. I don't want to waste their time coming out and inspecting and something not be right. So I'm having to spend a little time on that. So we're going to get a few things done on the trucks anyway. That's what I've been working on the weekends and stuff. So anyway, I'm going to get these U-joints in here and that'll be done. I got my hose on my rollback, the one that I broke unfortunately on the 4-door top kick, and worked on the lights a little bit last night on this. I had parking lights that went out on it, and I finally got them taken care of, and this thing runs breakers instead of fuses, and I ended up finding I had a breaker that was bad. So, and we put a tire, well, I told you last time, I told you we put a spare tire on here, and this is, like I said, this is the homemade rollback. And for anybody that wants to see, you know, it's just I-beam, rectangle tubing for the frame, I-beam. Just built everything for the cylinders, and these were used cylinders, and I'm probably going to change them. And the reason I say that is they bypassed a little bit when I first started using them, and they've gotten worse over the years. So they, you know, they're not leaking anywhere. They just bypass inside the piston. So what you get is your bed will ease down, you know, either which way you have it, whether you've got it back and you're tilting it down, it'll ease down, or if you got it forward, it'll ease down. But I don't know that I'm going to be able to pack them. And the reason I say that is these cylinders came from a truck that was in New York, and I cleaned them up, but they were really rusty, and the water gets down in the top of them, and they get really rough. And as most of you know, most rollbacks have the cylinders on the outside. I've got these on the inside, and don't ask me why. I mean, it's just the way that I built it. I wanted the frame of the bed to be on the outside instead of the inside, and it makes it a lot easier to build your, to build your cross supports and everything. So worked out really well like that, and it works good. I don't have any issues with it. So I'm not sure why. I guess being on the outside would give better support, but this bed's built heavy enough that you don't get a lot of flex like this in it anyway. This is 4x4 1/4" tubing, where most of them are not much to it, and it's heavy I-beam. So it's worked really well over the years. I forget how good it works until I get back in it and go to using it in comparison to these factory trucks, because this sits so much lower and the bed's so much faster. If you notice, these are all 1/2" lines, and most rollbacks have got a lot smaller lines than that. And what I've done is I've run one size up lines on everything all through it. I don't have to idle the motor up. I've got enough pump on it, enough gallons per minute, that this bed operates fast, and I don't have to rev it up real high or anything like that. So if I rev this thing up and winched the car on, I mean, it would be as fast as about if you drove it on. So it's worked really good over the years like that. And I'm sure the reason they use smaller lines is because it's cheaper, and you don't necessarily have to have a bigger line. But if you run a bigger line, like I said, you can make everything run a little faster. And as you can see, I used pipe and just teed it there and run the pipe back, and I made mounts. This is actually that plastic sort of wear pad material. I just made mounts for the lines to go in, and did that actually in 3 spots, there and in the back. And we don't have to worry about them moving or going anywhere, and I don't have to worry about hoses hanging back through there and getting tore up. So after you've used the rollback for quite a while, then you start understanding what things you can do to make it better for you, especially when you got to work on them yourself. And so anyway, and this is some of that wear pad material too. This is the original stuff I put on, and you can see it hasn't really worn out. So, but anyway, I'm going to get at this drive shaft and get it done, and I'll show you more later.